Hey, what's going on, everybody? Just wanted to come talk a little bit about Chapter 2. Chapter 2 dealt with print media, kind of the history of it, how we got to where we are today. To me, this is a very, really intriguing topic to me, just because it's interesting to see all the technological advancements we have made as humans pretty much since the beginning of time. We have not, there's not always been these luxuries that we have today. Forms of communication, different types of mediums, they have not always been at our hands. So it's really cool to see all the advancements made. Up until about the late 1400s, there was no way to get your words onto paper. It was pretty much just word of mouth, maybe some, handwritten letters that, you could have sent, which took a very long time. But a big breakthrough happened in the late 1400s in Germany. Johannes Gutenberg invented the movable type, and that was huge. Before then, not a lot of people knew how to read and write, and with the invention of this, it really helped people get those necessary skills. It's very interesting today in America. If you look at age 15 and over, 99% of people know how to read and write. That's pretty remarkable considering where that number was at probably, give or take, 600 years ago. So that's crazy to think about, when looking at the American population. And one thing that's been constant in media throughout all of history is that bias exists everywhere. You may see the one article that has no bias, but generally, media, there's bias everywhere in media. These publishers, journalists, all these people, they work really hard to just present the facts, and just give the people all the truth. But it's very hard to leave bias out of that. We're humans. We have our own opinions, and it's hard to not put those in there. So one big thing that happened was the start of yellow journalism. Happened about the 1890s with Joseph Pulitzer. He was running a establishment, had a really hard time of reaching out to his audience, getting readers. So pretty much he started telling these really far-fetched stories, writing these like extraordinary articles that necessarily wasn't true. And this term was branded yellow journalism. You saw a contrast to this. The New York Times, who just skyrocketed during this time, they stuck to the facts, and that really appealed to its readers and the audience. We see these today. In about the 1980s, there was an article written about this 8-year-old boy who was a heroin addict, and this writer got an award from this article. Turns out nothing from the article is true. That's just one instance. There's another instance where in about 2005, they were talking about weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East, Iran in particular, and there turned out not to be any weapons of mass destruction. Another thing with the Trayvon Martin murder in around 2012, they skewed the numbers. But if you look, you can really pinpoint a few major articles over the span of a very long time. So, like I said previously, these writers, these publishers, these large organizations do their absolute best to keep these quote unquote fake news out of the limelight, because it's not good for their company, it's not good for their brand, it's not good, it loses viewers, it loses audience, and that's what brings in the money. So one unique person in the journalism world, Ben Bradley, he worked at the Washington Post, the 1970s, 1960s, 1970s, around that timeline. He was unique because he didn't believe that politics and, political parties, he believed they should be separated from media. And so he really was independent. I'm sure I haven't personally read any of his articles, but I'm sure there was still some bias in it, but he really just stuck to the facts. And he is actually known for the breaking of the Watergate scandal, with Richard Nixon. And, I wasn't personally alive for that, but I just know the magnitude that had at the time. And I can only imagine if something like that were to happen today. So one big thing when you're looking at print media, do the HIP test. You know, honesty, independence, productivity. Going into it, honesty, is this a reliable source? Is it truthful? Independence, you're looking at who owns the source, who writes the source, you know, all that stuff. And then productivity, you know, is it good for America? Me as a Christian, does it back my beliefs? Does it, you know, fit into my Christian worldview? So that's kind of those 3 steps you can take when looking at print media. There are some smaller corporations that can be bias free, you know, looking at the local levels, smaller magazines, small news weeklies, and then one big one is schools. I did the morning announcements in my high school for my junior year. I also was in yearbook my senior year, but going to my junior year, we may have had a newspaper club, I don't remember. I don't remember, but I do know that we would do the morning announcements every morning, and we'd read off the script, and we would just give all the news that was going on in the school that day, that week, fundraisers, athletic events, clubs, whatever it may be. You know, we gave that news to the school, but we didn't have opinions on it. We didn't give our own, you know, our own 2 cents. So I could, you know, that is a form of media that is bias free. There is also a ruling where schools have the right to somewhat monitor the speech of students in schools, newspapers, announcements, whatever that may be. One of the big downfalls of print media recently is the rise in Google, you know, things like Amazon. All these technological advancements have really kind of pushed print media to the side. A lot of companies have taken a major hit. For me, I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. I came into school as a broadcast journalist with my concentration. I've been noticing, I've talked to some people, you know, to get into the business, to be a broadcaster, you have to start as a journalist, and you have to work your way up, all the way up. But knowing that the journalism side of it is kind of, you know, not as needed anymore, but it's still a very high demand job, or a very competitive market, it makes it tougher. That led me to change my concentration. So Google has definitely, the internet in total, but you know, Google as an example, has just really become and emerged as a competitor to print media. You know, whether that be billboards, books, newspapers, magazines, all that stuff, because you can all get it on the internet. And you can get it faster than, you know, going to Barnes & Noble or the newsstand, wherever you may be going. Another thing that's led to it is the rise of job search engines and, you know, the internet also. Like before, you'd list your apartment, house, whatever in the classifieds in the newspaper section, jobs would be there. You go in the newspaper and you would look, if you're looking for a job, you look for all the job openings. If you're looking for an apartment, you look for, you know, the apartments, the houses, whatever it may be. Now, you know, job search engines, you know, I've used Indeed in the past. I know that there's Monster.com, LinkedIn, there's several other, you know, places to help you find jobs. And that's just more convenient and faster than, you know, searching through the newspaper. And, you know, it's just faster and more accessible for humans. So, you know, print media it's really cool to dive into, to look at, to study. And it's going to be very interesting to see the adjustments that happen, you know, in the future.